In the heart of a dense African forest, where the trees whispered ancient secrets, there flowed a river called Ndombe. Its waters were as black as midnight, and it was said that the river had a mind of its own. The villagers feared it, for it was no ordinary river. It was cursed, its depths haunted by a vengeful spirit, a sorcerer betrayed long ago. Those who ventured into the river at night never returned, their bodies found days later, but their souls lost forever, trapped in the murky waters. On a quiet evening, as the village gathered for a ritual by the riverbank, the air was thick with tension. The elders, led by Mama Aoju, prepared their offerings, fruits, beads, and incense, to appease the spirit of the river. The villagers stood in silence, their faces drawn with fear and reverence. Mama Oju raised her hands to the sky, her voice trembling as she spoke the ancient words, "Spirits of the water, we offer these gifts to keep your wrath at bay. Protect our children, spare our village." Ayo, a young and defiant boy, watched from a distance. His eyes gleamed with skepticism, mocking the ritual. Beside him stood Efe, his best friend, who seemed uneasy, his eyes darting nervously between the river and the elders. Ayo chuckled softly. "Look at them," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "They act like this river is alive. It's just water, Efe. Water." Ife glanced at the river, his face pale. "You don't understand, Ayo. There's something wrong with that river. No one who's gone in at night has ever come back." Ayo waved him off, rolling his eyes. Maybe they couldn't swim. It's just a story to scare kids. But deep down, Ayo's confidence was shaky. He had heard the whispers, the warnings, the tales of the lost souls, but he refused to believe in them. To him, it was all just superstition. The next day, Ayo couldn't shake the feeling that the river was calling to him. It was as if the whispers from the night before had planted a seed in his mind. He sat with his friends in the village square, the sun casting long shadows as they spoke of the river and its curse. "I'll prove it to you all," Ayo said, a daring grin spreading across his face. "Tonight, I'll swim across the river. At midnight, I'll show you there's nothing to fear." His friends laughed, some out of disbelief, others out of genuine concern. "You're mad," one of them said. "Even the elders stay away from that river after dark. How much do you want to bet?" Ayo shot back, his voice full of bravado. Efe, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. His voice was low, almost pleading. "Ayo, please, don't do this. You don't know what you're getting into." Ayo looked at him, his eyes filled with defiance. "You worry too much, Efe. It's just water. Nothing's gonna happen." But Efe couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He had heard the stories, the ones about people who vanished, about the strange disappearances that no one could explain. And he had seen the fear in the eyes of the elders. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ayo found himself standing at the riverbank, staring at the black water. The village was silent, the only sound the rustling of the trees. Efe stood a few steps behind, his face pale and anxious. "Let's go back, Ayo," Efe said, his voice shaking. "This place, it feels wrong." Ayo, however, was resolute. "You're just scared," he said, stepping into the water. The cold sent a shiver through his body, but he pressed on, his movements confident. The water felt strange, unnaturally cold, as though it was alive, as though it was waiting for something. The surface of the river was eerily still, reflecting the moonlight like a dark mirror. Ayo swam deeper, the water now up to his chest. Suddenly he felt a strange pull, as if the river itself was tugging at him. He paused, his heart racing. "Efe?" he called out, but his voice sounded distant, as if swallowed by the darkness. Then, the water around him began to churn violently. Shadows moved beneath the surface, twisting and writhing like something alive. Ayo's breath caught in his throat as he tried to swim faster, but the current grew stronger, pulling him deeper. "Efe," he screamed, but the words were lost in the growing roar of the river. And then he saw it. A figure, rising from the depths, its eyes glowing a fiery red. The figure was tall and cloaked in shadows. its form shifting and flickering like smoke. It reached out with long, skeletal hands, grabbing Ayo's ankle and pulling him under. Ayo struggled, his heart pounding in his chest. He kicked and screamed, but the figure's grip was unyielding. As he was dragged deeper into the water, he felt a coldness seep into his bones, a darkness that consumed him. Underwater, Ayo found himself in a vast cavern, its walls slick with black slime. Ghostly figures floated around him, their faces twisted in agony. The air was thick with despair, and Ayo could feel his strength fading, his body growing numb. The figure loomed before him, its red eyes burning with malice. "You dared to disturb the river," the figure hissed, its voice like the sound of 1,000 whispers. "Now your soul belongs to me." Ayo tried to scream, but no sound came out. His vision blurred, and he felt himself slipping into darkness. But then the figure's voice echoed in his mind. "Bring me another soul," it whispered, "and I will spare yours." Ayo's eyes snapped open. The figure was gone, but he was still underwater, struggling to breathe. The ghostly faces surrounded him, their eyes pleading for release. At dawn, Ayo awoke on the riverbank, gasping for air. His body was cold, his skin clammy. Efe was kneeling beside him, his face filled with relief and fear. "Ayo!" Efe cried. "You're alive! What happened?" Ayo sat up, his head spinning. He didn't know how he had made it back to shore, but he knew one thing for certain. The river had changed him. His eyes flickered with a strange red glow as he looked at Efe, his mind racing with the figure's words. "Bring me another soul." Ayo's heart pounded in his chest as the weight of the river's curse settled over him. He had made a deal with something far darker than he had ever imagined, and now he had to pay the price. The river had claimed a piece of him, and it wouldn't let go until he brought it what it wanted. What will Ayo do next? Will he succumb to the river's demands, or will he find a way to break the curse? The story is far from over. If you're as intrigued as we are, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to catch part 2 of The River That Drinks Souls. Let us know in the comments, what do you think Ayo will do, and who or what might the river claim next? Your guess is as good as ours. Stay tuned for more.